Gerard Manley Hopkins was a Jesuit priest. He was deeply influenced by the work of a Catholic theologian who lived in the 1200s to the early 1300s, Duns Scotus, one of the most important philosophers of the so-called Middle Ages, along with Aquinas and William of Ockham. He is one of three of the great thinkers of that age. Unlike William of Ockham, whom I spoke about briefly in my lecture on art versus nature and the importance of being earnest, unlike Ockham, who was a nominalist, Duns Scotus was a realist. He believed that things took on meaning because of something intrinsic to those things, whereas the nominalist William of Ockham believed that things only take on meaning when names are attributed to them. In other words, for Ockham, a tree isn't a tree because of some innate treeness. A tree is a tree because we call it a tree. Whereas for someone like Duns Scotus, a tree is a tree because there is some intrinsic treeness. But Duns Scotus goes further than this. He's not simply interested in how general things like trees or oceans become trees or oceans. He's more interested in how things are utterly unique, that each tree is radically unique. It is no other tree. It is only this tree. In other words, God manifests himself in the universe through extreme individuation. Each thing, each person is only it and nothing else. And its itness is the way it manifests its individual inflection of God. The word that Duns Scotus used for this was hakitas, which is Latin for thisness. So along these lines, there is an intrinsic ericness, let's say. And when I am most unique, when I am acting in ways that I only can act, in ways that I only can think, that is my individuation, but it is not simply my expression of myself as a discrete unit, but it is a manifestation of myself as an expression of God, that God manifests in each of us through our own most individuality. So this idea really inspired Hopkins. As you can tell from his poetry, especially The Wind Hover, this is a man who is extremely interested in the intricacies of the natural world. He believed that in experiencing the natural world in an intense emotional way, much as Wordsworth might, he believed that this was how we can best experience God, that we don't experience God abstractly, we don't experience God really in reading the Bible or theology. We experience God through immediate contact with the physical world, immediate contact with the things of the physical world as individuals, as this thing and nothing else. So when Hopkins experiences the wind hover, the kestrel hawk, it is this wind hover at this moment and at no other time. And experiencing this wind hover at this moment at no other time is experiencing the divinity of this wind hover. That's how to get the divinity. If I just saw this wind hover as any old wind hover or an example of wind hoverness, I would not be getting the intrinsic individuality of this particular bird. Hopkins came up with his own vocabulary to talk about the apprehension of a thing's individuality. And I say apprehension on purpose because Hopkins imagined that our experiences of the natural world should be like apprehensions, like we grab something, and also we feel this intensity when we experience this something. Only then can we experience this intrinsic being, this hakitas. So Hopkins' word for hakitas is Inscape. He believed that each individual creature had an inscape, and inscape is that creature's individuality. So the goal of the poet, the goal of the artist, is to experience this tree right here, right now, this bluebell right here, right now, and get the inscape of it, or how this particular being manifests the power of God. To have this recognition is to experience what Hopkins calls Instress. So Instress might be said to be an awareness of Inscape, but not simply an awareness like some sort of passive awareness, but this very active, intuitive, emotional response. So we can say that the wind hover is Hopkins' speaker becoming aware of the inscape of that kestrel, and that awareness, that ecstatic awareness that we see in that poem, would be an example of Instress. So these are two key terms for Hopkins, especially in the sonnets on the natural world, like the wind hover, like pied beauty, like spring, like God's grandeur. All these are poems where Hopkins, through this act of Instress, is attempting to describe God shooting through via inscape a particular creature. So I'll stop there.